In the previous video, we learned about basic types like string, number, boolean, any, and unknown. Now we are going to apply those types to something much more important, that is functions. Functions are everywhere in JavaScript and TypeScript makes them dramatically safer. In this video, you'll learn how to type function parameters, how to type return values, optional parameters, default parameters, and the void type. So let's jump in. Let's start with a normal JavaScript function to add two numbers. This is how you would write function in JavaScript to add two numbers. This might work, but there is no safety. Someone could add a string and an integer, and it would return a value. Now let's type it properly. I need to add type annotation over here. The variable a and variable b should be a number, and the function also returns a number, so let me specify that. Now it works perfectly. Now TypeScript enforces a must be a number, b also must be a number. Now in this example, if someone tries to add a string and a number, you can immediately see an error. That is a compile time protection. In this example, we have also explicitly defined the return type. You can see over here, this function must return a number. And this is the syntax for a type returning function. You need to give a parameter, specify its type, and also the return type of the function. In this example, if you accidentally return something else like return hello, you can see an error. This prevents hidden bugs. Now let's talk about another important thing, and that is arrow function. Arrow functions also work the same way. For arrow functions as well, you have to specify the type of your parameters and also the return type of your function. You can also write this arrow function in a shorter way. There is nothing special, it follows the same rule as the previous function. Now let's talk about conditions where parameters aren't required. In JavaScript, you would write that in this way. You can see your error over here because I'm writing a JavaScript function in a TypeScript file. So let's fix that. We need to specify the type of name, which is a string, and age is a number. Now to specify optional parameter, we just put a question mark over here. Doing so, both this and this work. Here is an important rule. Optional parameters must come after required ones. For example, this is an optional parameter. It must come after this parameter. Let's try putting this ahead of this one. If I do this, you can see TypeScript is throwing an error because this is not allowed. TypeScript enforces structure. Default parameters work perfectly with TypeScript. For example, this is a function to greet a user and display their age. If I pass this user, it will use the default parameter over here and display it. But if I pass the age as well, it will use that age over here and display that age. TypeScript automatically understands the type. You don't need question mark if you provide a default value. Which brings us to our final type, the void type. Some functions don't return anything. For example, this function is not returning anything, so I have to specify return type as void. Void means this function does not return a value. And if you ask me why is this important, it is important because it prevents accidental returns. If I try to return something from this function like return 2, it will throw an error. So you need to use void when your function logs something, updates something, or performs a side effect. This makes your intent very clear. Now let's combine everything that we learned into a practical example. Here we have a function to calculate discount. It has two parameters, that is price and discount, and the type for both parameters is a number, and the default parameter for discount is 0, and the return type of this function is also a number. Now let's test the function. For that, let me go over here. Now our TypeScript code is compiled into JavaScript code, and when I run it, you can see the result over here. Today we leveled up your TypeScript skills by typing functions properly. You learned how to define parameter types, how to enforce return types, how arrow functions work with types, and how optional and default parameters behave. You also learned when and why to use the void type. Now your functions are safer, more predictable, self-documenting, and that's a huge step towards writing a professional TypeScript code. In the next video, we'll explore about TypeScript arrays and tuples. That's where things get even more interesting. I'll see you.